Three, two, one. Okay. All right. I think everything's okay. Hopefully. Um. So sorry about that. I'm just gonna completely start over. Hello, David at Lego Lab. How are you doing? So welcome to EH Films, episode one. I don't know what happened there. So I'm just gonna kind of start over here. So I hope that's okay. So this is going to be a podcast where I talk about film. That was basically what my original channel here on YouTube, or my first channel was here on YouTube. It was basically just talking about film in general, but I didn't really have too much of a reach as what I think I do now. I think 120 subscribers is good enough to get something started, and to have people, watch content. And I've always loved talking about film. I talk about film or movies and stuff like that so much that I start to annoy people and stuff like that. So I study film and the art that goes into it and the time and all that stuff. And I've worked on some productions like short films and stuff. So I wanted to start a podcast on this channel, so it doesn't really interfere with any of my Lego stuff. But yeah, I wanted to start a podcast where I just talk about film and I take requests from the chat for more movies and stuff to watch, and then I can give my opinion on them when I don't have really anything to watch in theaters. Maybe I'll just do one of my favorites that I really enjoy when I don't really have anything going on. I also a main part of why I want to start this is because I want to have people on here. I want to have guests on my little podcast live stream thing that I have going on. So that's basically the main thing that I want. Uh, Out of all of this, I want people in the community that we can all see a movie and then talk about it. So something like that. Um, I'm really open for anyone, any episode that wants to come on and talk about a certain film. That's basically what I want here. And I kind of got inspired by some podcasts such as Sardonicast, which many of you guys may know. I Hate Everything, Your Movie Sucks, or YMS, and Ralph the Movie Maker, both three incredible YouTubers or just creators in general. Um, both they're all very funny. And they have a podcast every Monday called the Sardonicast where they review either a film that was just out in theaters that has a lot of buzz around it, um, talk about movie news and stuff going on in there, um, or just something like that. But most of the time, they take a request, or like one of them picks a favorite movie of theirs or just a movie that they want to talk about on the show, and then they all watch it and talk about it. So that's kind of what I want to do on here a little bit, but maybe switch it up a little bit. So that's kind of the introduction of this podcast thing. I'm not thinking about making it live. um, Most of the time, I'm thinking of doing something a little bit more like Bricks and Bits, where it's not live and it's posted after. So um, that kind of happens. So don't expect it to be live all the time. It's probably this might be the only episode that's live. It might be live next time. Who knows? But definitely expect Toy Story 4 for next episode. But today we're jumping into knockoff Toy Story territory. So that is what brings me into Child's Play. Now, Child's Play is a 2019 reboot slash remake of the 1988, I think, 1987, 1988, somewhere around that time. Horror movie, slasher movie with a killer doll and a serial killer who does a voodoo chant and turns into the killer doll kind of It's very hokey. Not a very good movie in general. This one I've been following fairly closely with a YouTuber by the name of 3C Films. He has basically done a video uh, talking about every little tidbit of news regarding this film and like doing stuff like that. So I got requested one of his videos quite a while ago, and I just started watching them, and I've been keeping up to date on all of them. And so now we're at the actual release of the movie, and that is pretty. I don't know if I want to say that I entered this movie with very high hopes. I wanted it to be very good, but I had a strong feeling that it was gonna um, kind of meet below what people thought it would be. Like I originally thought it around a 70 movie, 70 like Rotten Tomato score. That's kind of how I estimate things with like a Rotten Tomato score. Like when I'm watching like movie trailers and stuff like that, I can kind of like make like a guess like this is in like the 60s range or the 40s range or something like that. Uh, so that's kind of what I do with movies. Here I kind of guessed it was going to be in the 70s ish range, maybe mid 70s. I think it's currently standing at a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, which it's not bad. I mean, that's not a bad score for a movie. I mean, if your movie is a 70%, if I made a movie and it was a 70%, I would be genuinely proud of myself. Um, Not saying that that's like the greatest that I could do. I know that I could do better, but like at least a majority of the people that see your movie come out with a positive experience or something good to say about it. So that's kind of where this whole thing is. I see this movie as a kind of run of the mill movie. It does do things slightly differently. I'm not a huge horror movie slasher fan per se, but I do um, enjoy some horror movies. I've watched Dead Meat, which is another YouTube channel on here, which covers horror movies and stuff, and it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting genre of film, just because there's so much stuff that goes into it. There's so many crazy stories that go into some of these horror movies. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of my introduction with Chucky and stuff like that. But moving on to the movie, so this movie, the synopsis, follows a boy named Andy and his mother who have recently moved in to this new city area. I don't really know. They're not really financially supported. They're not dirt poor, but they have to really be wise with their expenses and stuff like that. So the mother, Karen, works at this kind of food market, toy store. It's like an everything store type thing, like a Walmart, but it's like really small. Kind of, it's a pretty small store. Uh, with the Buddy Craze, which is the name of the doll that Chucky is. Basically, it's called a Buddy. And it's basically this high tech Alexa type toy that can walk around. It can like bring you stuff that you forget. It can like interact with all these companies' products like thermostat, like a Roomba type device, drone. It can basically interact with all those things, and she gets returned a defected one or something like that. Says like this mother, who's like, oh, this one had like red eyes and it was all like defective and stuff like that. So Karen takes it and she asks her boss if she can give it to her son for her birthday or for his birthday. Uh, so he bewillingly agrees, and that's kind of how it starts. So he opens up the gift, and it's the buddy, and he's like, "Oh, mom, this is kind of like for kids ever since the," because there's like during this movie, there's like an anticipation of the second model coming out. So there's like fans of this product that are like getting ready for like the second model and stuff like that. So this kid brings up, oh, the second model's out. This is like for little kids, and you know, he gradually gains like trust, and he begins to really like this buddy, which he originally had in mind Han Solo for the name, but since Mark Hamill is voicing the uh, the buddy doll, or Chucky, he autocorrected that to Chucky, which I thought was quite funny. Just kind of, there were actually quite a few jokes in this movie. Not something that you can really say with the first two Child's Play movies. I know after those, they started to get really, corny and campy, and just basically became comedies. So, um, but this actually had quite a good amount of jokes, and they all worked fairly well. There were only a few that fell pretty flat on their face, but other than that, the jokes were all pretty good. This movie does a great job in making you sympathize with the buddy doll, because he this time he isn't a serial killer in the body of a doll or mind or whatever, um, or like in a doll's body. He is just a mistaken AI robot that misinterprets things that people say and takes it to a violent route. Um, so you kind of at the beginning, where he still seems more sympathetic. Like in the end of this movie, he's full blown crazy, basically, just ruthlessly killing just so many people. Um, but he you can kind of feel bad for him at the beginning because he's very sympathetic, and he can tell what he did is like a wrong thing, and that his owner did not like that he did that. So he's very apologetic, and he feels very bad for doing whatever he did. So you do feel quite bad for him at the beginning of this movie. Most of that completely just goes away by the end, but it does a very good job. Mark Hamill in this film is incredible. He is, I think, the best role or the best cast. He's the best. He's the best performance in this. So, hello, Nerd Brick 101. How are you doing? Welcome to the very first episode of EH Films. Most of these will not be live, just so most of you guys know. I'm saying that again. So, well, I don't know. I'll probably do like premiere stuff. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe I won't. Actually, I probably won't do that. But so I'll probably just upload them like a normal video. So this is the one time for a live stream. I'm pretty good. Just got back from seeing Child's Play, which is what I'm talking about right now. So yeah. So anyways, Mark Hamill is great. He's probably the best role. He does the best job, I think, in this movie. Just the voice that he uses, it's basically like his normal voice, but kind of kind of with a softer tone to it. If you guys have ever seen, I'm not really surprised if anyone really didn't that I'm talking to on here. Um, there was this film, there was this festival film from 2017, I think, called Brigsby Bear. And it's this story about this guy who's sheltered by his quote unquote parents. He becomes obsessed with this character in this show that he watches, that is like the only thing that of exposure that he's like been like reached to or like connected to, which is Brigsby Bear. And Mark Hamill plays the fake father, and he also is the guy in the Brigsby Bear suit and like the videotapes and stuff. So he has like a certain voice for the bear character. So that is basically the voice that he uses for Chucky most of the time, which is actually pretty good. Um, and Chucky is actually, he has some, I know this sounds weird, he has some pretty cute moments in this. Mostly, they're all at the beginning, really. When Andy first unboxes um, Chucky, he's actually quite an adorable little robotic doll thing. He's very kind. He's very sweet. He's not like in the original where he's just sinister all the way through. He misinterprets things, and then he thinks that all the people in Andy's life are trying to ruin their friendship, and so he goes really psycho and tries to kill a bunch of people. So, but I guess with the talks of Mark Hamill, we can kind of move over to the casting, and I think, or more just the acting. I haven't really seen most of these people in uh, movies except for Mark Hamill and um, and Aubrey Plaza, who I've seen in quite a few things. One of my favorite performances from hers is April Ludgate from Parks and Rec, which is a very good show. It's been over for quite a few years now. I think 5 at now, but she's very good in this film. I think she probably takes a back seat to Hamill here. I think Mark Hamill just definitely takes the reins because his voice acting talent is it's incredible, actually, the stuff that he can do. But she's pretty above average, I guess. I wouldn't say she's like an outstanding or great job. Like you can tell that she's trying, and she does a good job for that. But there's still something that seems a little bit lacking. Like she seems kind of tired at times, and I don't know if that's part of her role because she is a single mother that's working day shifts and night shifts and like double shifts and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's just part of the role. It could be, and I believe it, but there's just something about her role that seems a little exhausted, kind of. Uh, the kid is fine. With kid actors, it's usually a gamble. Um, I'd say he's nothing better than the Stranger Things kids. I think with kid actors nowadays, those kids and most of the kids from like they're probably like top tier best kid actors that you can get nowadays. Maybe Brooklyn Kimberly or whatever her name is from the Florida Project, which was a film from 2017. She was very good in that movie. She hasn't really been in anything else, but um, yeah. So I think they're like top tier. He's probably maybe a tier below that. He's good, and like he's not the lines that he's given, he delivers them pretty sympathetically, pretty believably, like nervous and terrified and tense and stuff like that. Like you can feel the emotion inside of him when he has to kill this doll because he hates this thing for all the things that he's done to him and his mom and his friends. Um, but he also uh, like thinks of it as a friend and thinks back at the good times that they had. And there's a specific scene at the end where he finally kills um, Chucky, quote unquote, basically. And sorry for spoilers. I mean, there will be spoilers. I mean, it's you can't really talk about any film without spoiling stuff. But I don't know. Maybe with Toy Story 4, I'll dial it down a bit. But so, but you can see the tears in his eye, the raw emotion that he's going through, confusion, anger. and sadness just all rolled up into one. And he does a very good job in that last scene. His friends are very, very average. Most of them can range from good to just like most of them. There's like a good chunk of his quote unquote friends or people that he's in a friend group with that don't even talk at all. I don't think they have one line in the movie. Um, but I think there's this specific girl in the movie who's like the girlfriend type, not girlfriend, but like the tomboyish type. And she's fine, honestly. She's nothing too special. There's like this boy who they become friends with pretty quickly. And he's okay as well. They're both pretty average. There's nothing really too special about them. The way that they're really introduced is kind of ham-fisted, and most of them don't really have too great of chemistry. It's just all kind of flash forward, and you never get to see any of it. So it feels really forced, and it doesn't feel like a natural thing. The chemistry between these kids, and also just kind of like some of them have like small character arc type things where they're just kind of they're just changed just out of one thing. Uh, there's no real build up to like I don't there's no real build up. You don't really get to know them at all. Like there's no character building or anything in this film, which I think is a very big thing that you should have if you have a group of kid actors. I think it does that very well. I mean, it's dealing with their these children's fears and stuff like that, but it can they talk and they exchange dialogue, and you learn stuff about these characters, and you can go out of it and make possibly part two. I know they're in that movie as well, but you can go out of those films and know what these characters are like and their personality and their characteristics. Here, I don't really know anything about any of these kids except for Andy, really, because the focus is on Andy, and you could say the focus in it was on Bill Denborough, but there was still time for the other characters to develop, and like you got to learn stuff about them, and you were able to kind of learn more about them as you went on with the movie. But here, you don't really learn anything about any of the other kids. They just decide to become friends with him, and then they help him. So, yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that I also wanted to talk about here. Cinematography is pretty good, I guess. It's better than average. There's not really any shots that I can think of that do a whole lot different. There's a lot of footage from Chucky's camera that he has built into him, which can be interesting to see, like a point of view sometimes. Um, but for cinematography and stuff like that, it's pretty bland. There's some good overhead shots, sometimes some good panning and tracking shots at some points, but really nothing that you haven't seen before, and it's really nothing that looks visually stunning. The color palette in this movie is very green-ish, kind of like a 2000s movie, like The Matrix and stuff. Not overly, but like it's pretty dingy, kind of like a darker uh, muck green type color, like with the lighting and stuff. It's very dingy, and just the color palette is very kind of gross and like I don't know. It's like a darker like green and yellow and stuff like that. So it's like weirder kind of shades of those colors, but it's quite strange, but it's also kind of unique because I haven't really seen any movies recently with that type of color palette. Um, but like it's basically what you used to see back in the 2000s with some movies. I think what comes to mind most is The Matrix. I think that's a pretty dark greenish movie, maybe a little lighter, but um, yeah, but it's still some pretty good lighting areas, such as the house is very well lit with shadows and stuff coming from uh, the uh, the windows and the other people in the apartment complex passing in and out. Uh, there's a really good scene with the camera work where Andy opens up this glass cupboard, which Chucky was being kept in by Andy's mom because she said that he was spending too much time with with this Chucky doll or Buddy or whatever. So he gets home from school and he sees that the glass on one panel is completely smashed. So he swings open the cabinet, and through the reflection, you can see the Buddy doll or Chucky. So I think that's probably the best shot in the whole movie. I just thought it was something fairly clever and not new per se, but it was like I don't know, it was interesting. You don't see that shot too often, especially in horror movies and stuff. So um, I definitely thought that was pretty good. There are a lot of jump scares in this movie, a lot of just those subtle freak out moments, but they're done quite well. I usually don't jump at jump scares or anything, but I did jump at one. I'm not gonna spoil it really because I don't want to spoil most of these kills because they're actually pretty good kills for what they are. But there's one where someone is in a car. There's someone in a car, and there's a pretty good scare that you don't expect from what side it's coming from. So it's pretty good. Um, Other than that, the kills are fairly. They can range from being pretty good. I think most of them are pretty clever, and they incorporate Chucky's ability to um, control these Castlin, which is the company here. Hello, Organ Building Rail fan. How are you doing? But Castlin is the company here. It's basically like an Apple. So they designed this Buddy doll, and one of its features is that it can control Castlin thermostats and Castlin Roomba type things, and the TV and speakers and stuff like that. So they use some pretty cool things here, uh, like Chucky turns on like this table saw or something um, for on a character, and so they grab onto the to this pipe, and they grab onto this pipe, and he's like holding on. This person's holding on for dear life, and since Chucky can control the thermostat, he turns up the thermostat super high, and that makes the pipe get super hot, and it starts burning his hands, and so he doesn't really have a choice. So that is kind of what happens there. Um, yeah, but just some really cool uh, things that are utilized in this movie. He has a there's this really weird thing that in the end Chucky can use uh, Andy's what's it called? He can use his hearing aid to kind of like speak to him and like through that stuff. So I think there was a huge missed opportunity here. Uh, that you even show that there was a hearing aid that uh, Chucky could utilize to his advantage. I thought it would have been cool if Andy, his hearing aid was turned off partially through the night, so he couldn't hear anything. Um, and so, Chucky would go and kill someone or like go on a rampage or try to do something, but either Andy finds out or it just something like that. I think that would have been a cool thing to explore and go into. But I feel like the use of the technology that this company has in like murdering people, I think it was done very well. and I think they utilized it to the most that they even could. Uh, so I think they didn't really take any chances, or they did take some chances with these kills, and they were pretty good. Um, most of these kills were. I can't really think of one that wasn't good. Like there were no like cutaways or anything like that. Maybe the no, because that one was still all right. Maybe the one with the car was might have been the most dull out of all of them, but out of that, I think it was very good with the kills. The story, I already kind of explained the synopsis of stuff, so I'm not really going to get back into that. The story's pretty good, except for some plot holes and stuff like that, and stuff that just makes it convenient to the pacing and the progression of the story. Speaking of the pacing of this movie is very fast paced. There's really no time for exposition, and exposition is usually not the best thing to have in a movie where the character is just explaining everything to you. I mean, there is some in this movie, but it works when it's there. But it's very fast paced. There's really no time to breathe from start to finish. Uh, I would have wanted maybe a few slower scenes with conversation and dialogue to maybe, um, you know, introduce us to these characters more and make them more likable. Because in the end, as I said, we don't know anything about these characters. They're just most of them are just very bland and one note. Uh, So, with that being said, the story did have some very convenient quote unquote things for this story where I want to say one of the friends ends up acquiring the buddy doll that was Andy's, because I'm not going to spoil what happens. This buddy doll needs some repairs and then comes back and it goes to uh, one of the kind of friend type things of Andy. Um, Not really a friend at first. I want to say uh, they're kind of a dick. Not gonna lie, but I don't really see the point there for why he just all of a sudden acquired it. But he basically makes fun of the doll. So he owns it and basically just calls it a bunch of stupid names and stuff like that. But there's a scene where most of them, because there was like a falling out with all the friends. You know how most of these movies go. And so they're all hanging out without Andy. Um, and like they're like kind of talking bad about him and stuff like that. So, but then the Chucky doll is in the room and you can see through the camera. It's sitting in the room in one shot with all the kids. But then when Andy, you can look at like what the doll is seeing through a phone, uh, where you can like go into the app and like see what it's seeing. So he goes into the app and somehow no one notices that this Chucky doll just goes out on its own, or just like walks out of the room or anything, even though it is a robot. But no one like even cares that it's going out of the room. But then it leads to a kill, like that's later down the road. But it basically just makes no sense. It like there would be no one that would have seen that this doll is just walking out the door. You don't think any of the friends would have like tried to grab it back or anything. It just somehow appears outside, which in like a matter of seconds, which doesn't make any sense. So that's a main problem that I saw. And then in the very end of the movie, where it's this big fight at this Walmart type store, there is Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, it's about Chuck E. Cheese. Murderous mouse stabs everyone. It's a great movie, 10 out of 10. But it goes back to this supermarket type Walmart store that sells toys and all that stuff, like I described earlier. Um, So they're awaiting the launch of this new Buddy doll type thing, the Buddy 2. What a great name. Uh, so you got all these Buddy fans that are waiting for the second model, and then all hell breaks loose. Buddy goes in, he's in the store, and he starts creating havoc, killing people. He can make the Caslin drones, which is the company that I said earlier. I'm trying to like not lose anyone here. He can make these drones fly around, and but the thing is, drones usually don't have sharp. Um, they don't have sharp blades really. Most of the time, they don't have like razor sharp blades. Um, Even the most expensive ones might be a little sharp, but they'll still stop after. These drones have like razor, like they literally are razors, like as the blades. So I was just thinking to myself, that's extremely convenient to the story, uh, which wouldn't make any sense. And like you would think that people would think that this is a giant hazard to safety if the blades are literally just razor blades. Like I'm not even joking. So it was basically it was just perfect for the movie for killing people and moving the story forward kind of. So I thought that was very dumb. They can mow the lawn, I guess so, if you got them low enough. But yeah, so it goes through this whole mall, everyone or like this huge store. Everyone's evacuating. People are going, and Andy's friends are like, "Come on, we gotta go!" And then like the Chucky doll is like it shows up on the TVs that like he took Andy's mom and she's like being held captive, and he's like, all right, let's just call the police. And then he tricks them. He tricks his friends and he locks himself inside the store, and he's like, I have to do this to save my mom. And they're like, no. And so that's kind of what happens for the climax. So the climax is basically him just going in the warehouse section of the store. Jump scares ensue. He finds his mom. She's like held up by a noose, basically. It's like this forklift thing that Chucky is raising. And then she's attached to it. So the higher that she'll go, she'll start to choke and stuff. So, but she ends up getting saved. The cop in the movie comes at some point. But Chucky and Andy duke it out in the ultimate battle. Andy ends up getting the jump on Chucky and stabs him, and he's very emotional. As I said earlier in this episode, that specific scene is what happens. But when they all turn their back and they all think it's over, Chucky comes back, comes leaping after Andy and his mom, and I don't want to say anything about the police officer because there's some good stuff there. There's a lot of stuff that I'm actually kind of leaving out because for anyone who wants to see this movie, I'd recommend it. I'm not gonna say that you'll generally love it. Like I don't even love it that much, but I think it's a fun enough time. If you kind of turn off your brain and don't think about anything, I think you'll enjoy it somewhat. But the cop, one of the cops, or just the only cop really, uh, he appears and he shoots Chucky, basically killing him once and for all. And then there's like an end monologue and stuff like that, usually how ending movies do, showing the friends beating up the Chucky doll or the Buddy doll to bits. And then there's like the monologue keeps going and it's showing like this packing facility with the Buddy dolls. And then it zooms in on one box and one of the box's eyes or one of the doll's eyes turns on or whatever. So that kind of hints to the second one, which they are indefinitely going to make. I think if they make enough money, which they probably will. I mean, horror movies usually do fairly well nowadays. But yeah, if there's a sequel, I might see it. Who knows? It really depends. I kind of enjoyed this movie. I kind of didn't. There were some the things that this movie did well. They did it very well. Um, and the things that it did wrong, I guess, um, they really messed up on quite a bit of continuity and pacing and stuff like that. But overall, I think it's just kind of an average movie. If you don't really have anything going on, if you've already seen Toy Story 4 and you just want to kind of have fun, turn your brain off for an hour, 40 minutes or whatever, I definitely recommend going to see it. If you're going to go with really high hopes and think that it's going to be like the greatest horror movie of all time, I would not go see it, because you're just going to be severely disappointed. So I think in the end, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. 6.5 out of 10, which is fairly average, kind of mediocre, okay range, kind of like that. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm giving it. This is a pretty just average movie, really. There's not a whole lot to be amazed about. But the stuff, what I already said, the stuff that they do here, I think they do fairly well. Like the stuff that they do right here, I think they do fairly well. So, um, yeah. So yeah, that's basically where I'm gonna leave it there. A 6.5 out of 10. See it if you don't really care about um, how good it is. Don't see it if you have hopes of it being the greatest horror movie of all time, because it definitely isn't. It's nowhere close. But anyways, I think that's gonna wrap up this episode. As I said earlier, these podcast type episode things, they're not gonna be the longest, because I'm usually just gonna be talking about one, maybe two movies at tops. So yeah. Uh, so probably expect just 50-minute at most episodes. But anyways, thank you all for joining. I'm really excited that I had some people come out today and watch this. I have a lot of fun talking about movies, as I've already said. So I feel good being able to talk about it on here. So anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Expect Toy Story for episode 2. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Probably won't be live next time. I'll probably upload it like a normal video. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.